Hello, 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 hello. Attendees of World IA Day, New York City, please make your way back to a place where you can sit down. We are about to resume the program. We are about to resume the program. Oh. Everybody have a decent lunch? What? Decent. I don't want to brag about it. I picked the lunch. I can't say, did you have an amazing lunch? Because that sounds like I'm bragging about the lunch I picked for all of you. You know, just because I like burritos, you might be, burritos are terrible, or some other thing not good. All right, so thanks again, Goldman Sachs, for sponsoring lunch. This is only a coincidence that we scheduled it this way. This is not like a direct relationship. But next up, we have Nikki Roda and Tamara Waye, and we're very excited to have them here. They have a talk they put together. Just to introduce them really briefly, we have Nikki, who comes from the world of government agencies and global development, which is an amazing place. Really good work. She's left that behind to do something else, but maybe she still works at it. She develops visualizations for highly complex projects at Goldman Sachs. And Tamara used to be a programmer, which is incredible that you didn't stick with that. And now as a VP on Goldman's UX team, we're very excited to have them here. Here they are.
And the clicker is just over there. Perfect. Hi, everybody. So hopefully the presentation will come up. And the magic board says, might be having a little technical difficulties. Yeah, it happens. Anyway, how's everybody enjoying World IA Day today? Yeah, right? Oh my God, we've got such great presentations. We're really excited to be presenting for you guys today. Obviously, we're from Goldman Sachs. And yes, the computer is working. Do you want to just cycle over to the presentation? So funny thing is, we obviously work for an investment bank. But I think sometimes it's harder to see from the outside just how much technology is used in investment banking. And importantly, I think from our perspective, we are a small, scrappy UX team that is serving, we are a team of about 30 people globally. We have folks in the New York, the London, and the Bangalore office. But we are actually catering to over 8,000 engineers globally. So kind of asking lots of questions about how could we, in fact, as a UX team, serve just that many people, right? And the talk that we're hoping to give today, whenever it is that we get the presentation up, is really centered around how we've made a very small team scale internationally by using good information architecture principles, mostly through the use of common pattern libraries and best practice in UX so that we can then deliver these types of scalable solutions across the entire firm. And then also that's giving you kind of a macro level picture of how our team operates in a space that large. But then also at a micro level, we also deal with some crazy complex data. We have huge financial transactions, large amounts of information, market information. And our team is trying to think really creatively about how to use data visualizations as a way to allow users to navigate and drill down more deeply into the information that they need to use and to look at. And I'm really enjoying too, you guys can't see it, I guess you can see it behind me, is like I'm watching the presentation like happening, and I'm watching So if I'm looking just a touch distracted, it's because I'm actually, ooh, that's exciting. So yes, so in general, I think what's fascinating and what's really sort of under the covers of large banks is just how much is done with technology. You know, I think when you think, oh, electronic trading, oh, like, okay, that makes more sense to me. But importantly, next slide. Oops, did we lose a slide? I hope we didn't lose a slide. Yep, we lost a slide. Yeah, you know what happens. We're just rolling with it. Importantly, it's not just electronic trading that we do with technology, right? So we are a large organization of like almost 24,000 people. We have HR departments, we have compliance departments, operations departments, we've got a legal department. We've got internal services that are also being delivered with technology. So the types of solutions that our group touches can range in such a vast array, both from complicated trading systems all the way to how do you manage the timekeeping tracking that you're doing on the various projects that you're doing. And importantly, the solutions that we have to build and develop actually cater to all of these different use cases. So how does the group actually come up with one solution that can be applied to a sales trader with 8 monitors, all of them blinking and flashing at them, to the tech infrastructure guy who's in one of the data centers and he's trying to monitor the systems to make sure that all of the CDNs are up and the network's running fine. So to that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Tamara, who's going to talk you through one of the solutions that we've come up for that.
Thanks, Nikki. So as she mentioned, our team is rather small, but we have a large client base that we have to touch and be able to educate as well. So one of the things that we did through many of the projects that we've done, we've come up with a number of patterns and examples for teams to be able to model and build applications off of. So we didn't just want to throw over the assets and just hope that they would use it. We wanted to create more of a sense of community. We wanted people to understand that their design should begin and end with the users. It's all about the users. There's a process and there's a methodology behind it. So in addition to the assets, we come up with a pretty comprehensive site. And what we're trying to do is create more of a culture within the firm. And I think since our launch, we've had a lot of positive reception. We've had a number of teams like really want to engage with us. They understand where it is that we're trying to take the firm, and it's been really positive, to say nonetheless. Yeah. So the thing that we want to do is switch over to showing you a live demo of the site.
So the site that Tamara is loading up right now is actually a site which is kind of delivering these design assets that that we've helped develop for the engineers in our bank. And the site, the website itself, our web UI toolkit, is really just a way that we're delivering good content to them, right? So we have different areas of the site, not just an overview about, oh, hey, this is what this product is for you, but also how you use it. We've got sample applications, actual example layouts that we're hoping to show you guys, documentation on how to use various components, widgets, best practice on how and when to use these things, as well as community pages, right? Because we want to foster a community of user experience professionals within the bank. And so we're trying to act as that starting point for the discussion. If anybody else wants to get involved in learning about user-centered design, like we want to help be the bastions and the leader for that conversation.
Okay, so just to kind of take you behind the scenes, I think Nikki touched upon a number of items that are contained within the documentation site. But at the beginning, we have like an introductory where we're trying to just get people to understand just basic principles of UX. And our toolkit, the assets here is actually called the Web UI Toolkit, and it's pretty much based off of the Twitter Bootstrap. So that's kind of the foundation of it. And so in the introduction, we're just pretty much trying to get people to understand how to create responsive applications, and we're trying to get them to just wrap their heads around the concept itself. And then in terms of the basics, for teams that are a little bit further along and they're ready to get started with developing their sites. We have like a number of layouts, topography, and styles that they can use at their disposal. In addition to that, we have a number of different components and also plugins. So all of these things are particularly styled, and they're created with GS branding. So teams don't really have to spend too much time thinking about it. They can start to focus their attention on the functionality and trying to figure out how they can piece together all of these components and plugins to create more of a great experience for their end users. So I'm just going to take you into a couple of these sections here. Okay, so as I said, we have like the introduction, just trying to get people up to speed. We also provide them with a number of design references. So many times this is the first time that teams are actually having to design applications. So just to help them to jumpstart the process, we also came up with a wireframing template. So again, like a part of the process, we're trying to get them to understand that they need to be able to circulate their designs to their users a little bit further in the process, as opposed to waiting at the end and building an application and then coming to the realization that it doesn't meet the mark. So we've also come up with a number of wireframing mockups and tools that they can use. And then we also provide them with a couple of visual aids just in terms of how they can start to envision their apps to look. Okay, and I'm just going to switch back over to the topography. So we have like a topography and a library here where they can see different examples of when to use and why to use certain styles. And then we have a plethora of components that are all styled with branding. And then more importantly, we also give them like a lot of guidance as to when they should start to use certain components. And we give them a little bit of a reference, like examples of good use and improper use. Okay, and so before I jump into the examples, I just wanted to switch back over to our community site. So Nikki had touched upon this earlier. The main premise of the documentation site is to also help bring together teams and create more of a sense of a community. So we have like a number of training sessions. We have a number of different boot camps just to try to get people excited about UX and get them on the same page. And we have like a number of online discussions. So we have a lot of active threads and participants. Like we said, we're trying to create like more of a changing tide where it's like a share of information and make it a little bit easier for teams to share information. And if we switch back over here to this user experience page, we were really fortunate last year to have an intern who was let me see if I can bring this down. We were fortunate to have an intern last year who was actually legally blind, and it was just amazing. She was a programmer, and just to see how she had to set up her environment just to be able to code, and how she had to set up her environment just to be able to consume information off of our sites, it was just amazing to see. I know that Nikki worked with her very closely on a couple of projects, and she was her mentee during the time that she was here. We had a couple of videos that we had posted about her experience, and I think this also helped to start to change the shift in culture as well at Goldman, because we're not just creating applications for one set of users. There's a variety of people with a variety of different needs that we also have to take into account for. And it was just an amazing project, and we were able to post a lot of slides, documentation for teams that are looking to make sure that their apps are accessible and they're compliant, and all of their user base can actually be able to perform their day-to-day function.
Yeah, no, Jordan's participation in growing and expanding the understanding that users have different needs, and importantly, how even just small changes in the way that the code was built had such tremendous impact and influence on how she was able to use the site. That was extraordinarily valuable to propagating that message across the bank.
Mm-hmm. So one other section I just want to show before we flip back over to the slides are examples. So a lot of teams, this is their first time actually creating responsive applications. So we try to give them a really good starting point. So in addition to having like the visual guide, they also have downloadable code that they can actually use. So we have a couple of examples where we've mocked up a couple of dashboards so they can either run the demo, take a look at it and literally snag the code, and they have a great starting point. And it's a little bit easier for teams to be able to create by having a template to go from.
Yeah, so we felt like as user experience professionals and information architects, you could really appreciate, for a team as small as ours, serving as many technology and engineering clients as we have to, being able to show them patterns and best use and best practice of different patterns and how they could apply those to their specific cases would at least get us to a better use and consistent use of the various types of pattern libraries we have out there.
Exactly. So I'm just going to flip through a couple of these examples here. And I think one of the other things that's been really powerful is that the fact that people are really open to our team's recommendation and suggestion. So many times they'll tag us or tackle us in the hallway and ask us to, take a look at their screens. And I think it's been really great having the site out there, because it's actually encouraged people to come and seek us and find us and get input from us earlier on. So here's just a couple of more examples, and then we'll switch back over to the slides. So this is just like an example of a form wizard. In the firm, I can't tell you how many applications have some type of process, like whether it's a form where they have to follow a series of steps. So time and time again, we're seeing similar requests from teams. And so we try to pattern our example so that it can easily work across a number of applications, a number of needs, but bearing in mind that they can take this here and they can customize it based on their need.
Yeah. So this is sort of at a macro scale, something that we're trying to do across the bank to apply to use cases, like I said, from as disparate as the securities division all the way to HR, to compliance, to operations, to tech infrastructure, and back again, right? So our patterns really have to adapt and evolve, depending upon these various different needs. I wanted to take a second to also point out some very fun work that some of our team has been doing about using information visualization to create another sense of hierarchy in a very data-dense, data-complex space, such as securities and trading. So Ashley, do you mind if we switch over to one of the videos?
Sure.
You already had it open, actually. So you can see in this particular visualization, this is actually monitoring portfolio's performance over the course of a day, right? So I have a humongous order. I've got like hundreds of things that I want to get cleared over the course of a day. But I can't monitor hundreds and hundreds of actual individual trades that are being performed for me, the client, and probably some large institution like a pension or otherwise. And we're using a number of different visualizations here, from tranches to actually the performance graph, which is actually mapping out, your trade weighted or average daily price, to the sectors in a various heat map. And what was really fascinating and fun about this particular visualization to develop was that we were thinking about, when we were talking with the users, they were coming to us and saying, hey, we've got all of these different needs. I want to see the data cut 10 different ways, which almost always led us to grids, and if you work in finance, and I'm sure some of you do, grid is always how this type of data is represented. And we asked for a moment, we said, look, we know grids are valuable to you because you can filter, you can sort, those things are super important, we're gonna let you have that. But can we just for a moment take a step back and ask you the question of what you're trying to find in that data? What are you trying to find in the grid? Can I bubble it up with an information visualization to give you easier access to that information? And so we landed on these particular visualizations for this use case because it was important for me to know that in that sector up there, oh my gosh, it's flashing red, its performance is really bad. Maybe I should double click on that and find out who it is that's performing poorly, because I might cancel that order. All of a sudden, the heat map actually gives me instantaneous information about this is where I need to be directing my attention. What was really great too is that JavaScript, being amazing like it is, we can actually add interactivity so that when I click on that sector heat map, not only do I see a detailed description of that particular sector and the performance in it, but the grid below will actually filter to that sector so that I can actually see the thing that I wanted to drill into and see the individual data points there. So this was radical for our clients because all of a sudden we were giving them easy access to something that previously for them was, I've got to navigate around. Like, I just want to search and find the thing quickly. We're like, well, we're giving you more information so you can find the thing that you want to find quickly. Can we switch to the second presentation? Who's second? Yep. So this was another really fun one. There are a number of public data sets in the wake of all this regulatory reform in the financial industry, trying to pump out lots of sunlight into areas of the market that have previously been very, very opaque or dictated by over-the-counter transactions that you couldn't really see. One of those was the swaps market. And having information about how large amounts of trades were being done over the course of the day could be valuable to you as a trader or a salesperson because that gives you information about, okay, so this market is really hot, or my client is interested in this. Maybe I could give them some visibility into this market, or maybe it gives you a signaling about some of the price activity. So this was a data set that was actually coming in flat text files. And it was this huge sparse grid that, again, filtering. Everybody was in Excel. We were filtering, we were sorting, all the rest of it. And our group just gave the small example of actually putting a heat map to this data so that over the period of time that you're watching it, so over the course of a day, traders and salespeople could actually put this application in one of their 8 monitors and just watch the heat map flashing over the course of the day. So if I'm somebody, I'm actually someone who's most interested in the 5-year swaps. I can be constantly looking at that particular row and see how it's performing relative to all the other swaps in the market. I'm also getting information visualization on the overall volume over the course of the day. And these are things that we weren't able to surface to them before in Excel. God bless Excel. Excel will always be in finance, but adding just this touch of additional interactivity and layering and presenting the information to the user, it was actually making the data sets that they loved, they breathed, just more useful to them. So these are a number of ways that our teeny team at Goldman Sachs is trying to use good information architecture, good user experience best practice in order to help serve better and more useful designs to our clients. And I think with that, we'll start taking questions. Thank you again so much, everybody. There's one all the way in the back.
Oh, raise your hand again. Oh, Joe. Hey, Joe.
Thanks. I work with ADP, right? So we're similar, right? We have a lot of data. We're really good at data. And
Yes.
So one of the things that we struggle with is the back end platforms, right?
Yes.
So we have these toolkits, and some of them are in Dojo, some are in Angular, right? But we've got platforms all around the world, and so we're giving guidance, right? And then it takes time for people to comply with those as time goes on, and it never looks exact, right?
Yeah.
How do you manage something like that?
So I think what's fascinating about our group has grown in the last couple of years, but our group growing in the last couple of years is also taking place at a time when Goldman is shifting its perspective on how technology is delivered across the bank. So they've moved into a model where services are shared, right? So we're only the presentation layer, right? Like our toolkit is really just HTML and CSS. It's not even the back end. But we work very, very closely with a web team that is actually making all of the linkages. That's the web engine, as it were, that's making all the linkages between our back-end data stores and data services and all of our proprietary ways of monitoring and calculating and doing our evaluations all the way up to the client and delivering it fast. I can't tell you as much about how we created that web stack, but our work, importantly, on the user experience team, we tried to make our client-facing stuff as thin as possible so that it could accommodate someone that was using the web stack or had their own web stack, or that, because we're in a transition period where we're trying to get everyone to use the same thing, but we wanted to make sure that our services could be used by everybody.
All right.
So I can imagine just thinking of people who use Bloomberg terminals, which are difficult, and yet there are people who have mastered them.
Yes.
Right. So have you run into the problem with, I have mastered an extremely terrible interface, and by God, if make it easy, then I don't look as cool?
You know what's great about that question was I was just talking to somebody at a lunch about this, is we have very unique clients. I feel really blessed that I can talk to our internal clients by just walking up 3 flights of stairs. And I could just be like, hey, what's up? How's it going? Can I ask you a couple questions? Like, that's amazing. The difficulty is that these people are overworked, they have no time, and they have no attention for us. So very often the ask on our side to develop good interfaces for them is like, can I get a half hour of your time? And they're like, no. Minutes. 5 minutes, you know, like we almost have, we don't always get to have the level of engagement with them that they want. And as a consequence, we see a lot of different teams willing to struggle through workarounds. Like I do something in this piece of software, then I write it down on a piece of paper, and then I take it to another piece of software, and then it calculates something, then I put that in my calculator, which is on my desk, and then I take, like, and they will be they don't happily do this, but the mentality of we don't have enough time to talk to you allows them to feel that that's a more comfortable option to them than taking the time with us and the risk that, you know, is involved with, well, it might not work, and then I might not know what I'm supposed to do, and I have to make money, and I have no time, I have to do this. And that's where this conversation that Tamara was talking about with the community groups and with talking with the developers and helping to create a consistent style across all of our applications is changing hearts and minds slowly, right? Like we're slowly winning people over, because remember, you know, not all of the interfaces are beautiful. A lot of them still look way worse than Bloomberg. I'm not going to say which ones, although... but more and more of them are starting to look styled in a consistent way with standardized behaviors and patterns. And more of the businesses are like, why doesn't mine look like that? What is the guy sitting 2 rows away from me? Why does he have a cool looking app? Why does mine look like junk? So, you know, we're baby steps.
Sure. So adoption, that's kind of my space. So we kind of started grassroots. Like a lot of developers, like through the interaction with the designers early on, had expressed an interest. Hey, whatever you guys are doing, count us in. So pretty early on, we had an early adoption program. Where we just kind of went to specific teams that kind of showed us love in the past. And we said, hey, this is what we're doing. Are you guys interested? Does this make sense? You know, if we wanted to create a platform for teams to be able to get started pretty early on, what do you think we need to do? So we got input from them pretty early on. We had them actually kick the tires. So before we even released it out there, we had a platform, or we had like a base of developers that were already very supportive. And so we did it very grassroots.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.